Without doubts, I think it's by far the best league in the world.
How dare you score like that in the Premier League? Mission accomplished in the Premier League. The American.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Premier League show. I am your host, Timucin, joined again, as always, with Gally and Bickler. Gally, how is it going?
It's going good. 1 week down, 37 more to go.
Yes, it is good to have the game back. It just changes the entire life, by the way. Bickler, how are you doing?
We're doing all right. Football's back. We're all happy about it. Some of us are only happy about it for an hour, but it's back.
Yes, I mean, we don't hide the fact that, well, I definitely don't with the background, and neither does Gally, that we're like Liverpool fans, but we try to be as objective as possible and look the league in general in the show. But yes, starts in the crack of dawn on a Saturday. Was not the best starts, even though it was good to see the boys back, good to see the game back. But it's odds. It's like my regular weekends are back. Normally when the Premier League's not going on or there's no soccer, I just don't know what to do with myself. So, but let's get right to it. Take a quick look at the week. We will start with the match of the week. And our match of the week this week was West Ham versus Manchester City. So, Gally, was that game everything you thought it would be, or were you surprised in kind of like how it unfolded overall?
So I was a little surprised, only by some of Pep's kind of tactical switches. I was interested to see how he would integrate Haaland into his play. I would say it took a little bit of nuance to see what was different and change. Then I'd say if you have ears and you're not deaf, the commentators just went about talking about the tactical changes for the entire 90 minutes of the match, while they just kept telling us how unique and interesting it was of what he was doing with his fullbacks. So it made me actually kind of look at it a little bit deeper, and it did surprise me a little bit. I think we'll get deeper into some of the tactics, but I do think it looked like a different City side. I don't think it was the same City setup we've been accustomed to seeing. We've always joked that he uses one fullback on the in and one to keep with, and he keeps his wingers out wide. He still kept his wingers out wide, but he tucked both fullbacks inside, really kind of using his Rodri to drop into like a midfield three, in the defense. I mean, the center back three. And it was interesting. He basically was playing with 2 6s, 4 8s, 3 wingers, and a 9. So I feel like they're going all out to score some goals this year. That's their plan.
I think that was my thing. Obviously, as like a Liverpool fan, my initial focus when I'm watching the game is to see what City is doing and what's different, especially with like Haaland coming in. And I still see Bickler, as you watch the game, there's a lot of runs that Haaland does where he would probably get the ball in Dortmund. You know, they will be looking for those runs. He is kind of like part of the overall equation now in terms of being the focus. One thing I was impressed with him is, though, he kept making those runs. He did not like stop his movement because he was not getting the ball.
Yeah, I mean, so we were pretty critical of him after the Community Shield, right? I mean, we talked about his movement. Obviously, the movement was better. I think we're going to see this over the course of the year where what he really loves to do is that run in behind between the channels, right, into the half space. And it's pretty fun to do when you've got De Bruyne, the best midfielder in the world, threading that ball through to you. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. I think teams will adjust to it. It's frustrating to watch City as a supporter of another club, because they do what they do, right? I mean, this was a typical City game in the fact that they can get outplayed for a large majority of the match and still just outscore you, right? I mean, they don't necessarily outplay you, but at the end of the day, they outscore you and they get you 3 points. So, I mean, I think that's what's frustrating and also lethal about City. And now they've got a guy. Now they've got a guy that can really be a talisman for them, you know? Before, I think they were really relying on some creative wing play in some strikes from range from the midfield, and they still got that. But now they've got a guy up front that can really lead the charge, and that's going to be scary for everybody.
Let's look at the other side, and we'll definitely get back to City and look at some of the stats from the game. Gally, I think you mentioned it in our Discord fan channel when we were watching it, to leave it to Moyes to sign a bunch of people but not play them in the starting lineup and not making changes. It kind of like went with what worked last year. I kind of disappointed in their performance. It seemed like they struggled a lot more than they would. I mean, you kind of see the grade that SofaScore has on Bowen over there. He definitely was not himself. Does that kind of like worry you at all, or it's just a matter of fact that they were facing City?
I think they were facing City, and they were facing City missing their number 2, number 3, and number 4 center backs. Young Ben Johnson is a right or left back. He shouldn't be playing center back, and he sure as hell shouldn't be trying to do it against Erling Haaland. And on top of that, I thought Antonio, I know they give him a 6-6 in this. I thought Antonio was pitiful. I thought he was poor. I thought at times he looked disinterested and lazy, and that's everything he's not. He works hard. He works his socks off. He was up front all by himself. And a couple of times, there was one time in the first half when they finally got the ball down the right-hand side to Jared Bowen, and he released Antonio, and Antonio didn't even make the run. And Bowen just threw 2 hands up in the air in like pure frustration, because I think he knew that he was the best chance for them to have any shot at scoring a goal. Was Antonio making a run off a defender, Bowen maybe cutting inside, and it was one of the few opportunities they had, and it almost looked like it was one of those days where like a striker is on an island all by himself, and he like looks at the rest of his teammates one of the 5 times he gets an opportunity, and he's like, what do you think, I was going to actually be on it this time? And it was almost like, well, you have to be, because we're only going to get 5 chances all day. So Bowen wasn't great. I thought Lanzini looked slow. I'm not a huge fan of Pablo Fornals. I know that David Moyes clearly loves him because he starts him all the time. So for me, it was a little bit of the same, but I do give him a little bit of a pass. Their 3rd and 4th string center backs, being a right wing back is playing center back, and you lose your keeper in the first half. It's not easy from a defensive standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most shocking part, I mean, it's going to be a battle. I mean, you look at the possession, 75-25. And part of that was, and I think it goes back to Antonio in some ways, his biggest strength is, his freaking strength. And, just basically harassing the center backs, chasing every ball, making life difficult with his press, or just not giving up on a ball, causing maybe some like missed passes, kind of like, that way, maybe getting a throw in the opposing half and stuff to keep some position for West Ham. And Bickler, it's almost like we did not see that. And when you don't have that, you give this much possession to City. I mean, they're just going to keep creating. They have the talent to keep creating stuff.
Yeah, that's true. And he's got a guy behind him that's going to take his job if he can't figure it out. That's for sure. And so, I mean, with Antonio and Lanzini going off, they look markedly better with Kamaka and Ben Rama on the pitch. That was a turn for them for sure. And I think both of those players are improvements on who was started. So, I mean, it'll be real interesting to see what this looks like in a couple of weeks for West Ham. But yeah, I mean, I'm with Gally. I mean, the center back situation, they dealt with this last year, right? And so they addressed it in the transfer market, and the guy they buy doesn't have an ankle surgery right now. So it's like, they just can't seem to catch a break and get enough depth on the back line there. And that's going to be an ongoing issue for them. And we really, we were prior to this year, I know the group of us were pretty bullish on West Ham, but like if they can't get that back line sorted out, they're going to have some serious issues. And yeah, I think a lot of this one was down to just starting some inexperienced quality at center back and then losing your keeper.
Yeah, I mean, look like on paper, and this is why we picked this as match of the week to cover, it would be the toughest matchup in terms of, especially for like City to start the season. It was a tough away game, knowing how West Ham played last year, and it just never looked like it was going to be difficult. Even when the goal took some time to come, Gally, you just did not feel like West Ham had any teeth to kind of give City any trouble.
Yeah, I almost feel like they needed City to get that goal to even open up at all in the second half, because I'm pretty sure that, the Moisiah, as the West Ham supporters like to call him, he basically lined up for a 0-0 draw. And if they had held a 0-0 draw, he would have called it a great point and he would have said it was amazing. And then maybe they smash and grab it late. And that's what they looked like they were playing, because they were just sitting back. They were just eating up pressure, letting City have the ball. And if you do that with City, you're just going to give up opportunities. And Holland gets the penalty, and it was a penalty. I mean, it's a stone cold penalty. The keeper comes out. But to Paul's point, he kept making that run. And on that instance, it wasn't the world-class ball from De Bruyne. It was the world-class ball from Ilkay Gundogan, because that ball is just as good. The weight on that pass, splitting between the channel, and then he runs onto it. And I give the kid credit. That's where you see the true, like, what you pay for in like a top flight striker. He went full out, no worry about getting cleared out, and knew all I need to do is get a slight touch on this with my right foot, and this guy's clearing me out, and I have a penalty. And there were questions when the season started. Is Mahrez on penalties? Is De Bruyne on penalties? Gundogan's been on penalties. That kid walked to the ball, picked it up, looked everyone on the pitch, and was like, ain't nobody but this ponytail taking this shot. And then steps up and just slots it home like he'd been in this league forever. Like there was no pressure. Nice. And we've all said it, right? We were excited when Nunez got the penalty, and then we were like, oh, please don't miss this. And he almost found a way to have it saved. That was never being saved by any keeper. And I don't care if he's got like go-go gadget arms. You weren't saving that, because it was so much conviction, so confident. And, other than the annoying goal celebration, it really was his first half performance for me was like an announcement to the Premier League that, like, if I stay healthy, I'm here, and you better get the F out the way.
I know, especially Bickler found that celebration really annoying due to our fantasy matchup this week, but I'll save that for your fantasy show on Wednesday, Gally, to talk about and cover. I just figured I remind Bickler. That's how I used to beat him this week. But so Bickler, like what Gally is talking about like Moyes' plan, opens up this question. Against teams, if Bickler is a manager in the Premier League, against teams like Liverpool and City, do you do we're going to sit back, hang in there till 70, 80? If we nick one, we do? Or they're like teams like City where sometimes the best defense is offense. You kind of like go at them. And if that exposes you in the back, it is what it is. Which route would you pick?
I mean, I think your options change when you're starting a fullback at center back, right? And I think that's probably the reality of that. I think West Ham's a good enough team to play football versus anybody, and I think they can play open football when they're fully healthy. I think they were really handcuffed and limited by the lineup they put out. But I mean, that's a tough team with good players. We've talked about Bowen and our love of him in general, and I think that like between Bowen and Souček, I think you've got a really, really nice like spine with some steel in it that can really sort of give teams problems and a lot of grit. I think I'm still bullish on them. If I were West Ham, I think they can go toe-to-toe with anybody when they're healthy. But I think when you're playing listen, like in the first game of the season versus City, I would not have sat back. Even with that limited lineup, I probably would have gone for it, just because if you're ever going to catch City, it's when they're in an adjustment period, and that's the beginning of the season. They start a little slow, generally, traditionally speaking. So yeah, I probably would have gone out and gone for it.
Yeah, especially after this season, where they have probably more changes than any of the recent years I can think of in terms of like their starting 11. I mean, I know like Pep rotates a lot. He has a lot of talent on the bench and stuff, but like moving on from like Sterling and Jesus and stuff like that, they have a lot of pieces they're trying to work in. But at the same time, yeah, now you have Holland making those runs with the speeds at your center backs is probably, but like I say, it's kind of like a pick your poison. Gally, I'm going to make you the man. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Bickler.
I was just going to say, we say that. I would have done that, and then we would have been down 5-0 at halftime, and that's why I'm not a manager.
And that's, I looked at that match. I saw with the lineups, the defense, you lose your keeper, you're down 1-0, and you could almost see they were just hanging on, trying to get to the half. They get to whatever the 55th, 60th minute, he makes the double substitution. He yanks Antonio and Lanzini, brings on Ben Rama and the big Italian striker. And let's be real here, guys. He could have scored 2 goals. One was a great save by Ederson. The other, he heads it over the bar and he's wide open. And Declan Rice has to finish that ball on the cutback. And if he does, who knows what happens. But to our point, as soon as they started to go for it, down 1-0, and bringing on the striker and bringing on a little bit of attack-minded play, they create 2 or 3 opportunities. It's less than 45 seconds after Rice blazes over the bar. City hits him on the lethal counter. Holland is in. It's good night, the lights. So to Paul's point, you want to come out and play them, but then they put you to the sword. Because as soon as you create space and you have players like De Bruyne and Gundogan, and you're bringing on guys like Bernardo Silva off the bench, and you're bringing on Mahrez. Like, for me, that's what this match was about, was the quality of players that City brings off the bench. And it does get a little bit scary, and it makes me wonder exactly what their tactical switches will be. Because to me, sitting Bernardo Silva was almost like Pep saying, hey, I read the papers. I know you might go to PSG. I know you're thinking about going to Barca. If you want to leave, you can leave. We don't need you. I'll start Gundogan. I'll start Rodri. I'll drop Foden into the midfield. And, we like to make fun of Jack Grealish and his big calves and his short shorts, but that was the best 60 to 70 minutes of football that he's played for City yet. And it's because he was able to play on the left-hand side, create, and he was sending crosses into the box. And anytime he sent crosses into the box last year, Pep would do one of his temper tantrums on the sideline because he loves the ball on the floor. He doesn't want it up in the air. But now you can tell tactically they're looking to get the ball in with crosses. And it scares me a little bit because that makes Mahrez better and that makes Grealish better because those are the type of wingers they are. So, I think this attack, as scary as it is going to be the best Man City attack we've seen under Pep Guardiola. And it's not just because of Holland. I think it's the collection of the pieces that they have.
I think it does suit Grealish more. And I think part of the ordeal is I think Grealish is the kind of player before he came to City, I don't think he has ever had to look over his shoulder. And some players do not kind of like react well to that. And, sharing the spots or worried about, am I going to get yanked if I'm not performing and stuff. I think this kind of gives them a bit more. I think they made it very clear when they moved on from Sterling that, we are putting at least some of these eggs in your baskets kind of deal and give him more confidence, which I think is helping him play. As much as I'm not big on his short socks either. I think, I'll agree that this was probably like the best I've seen him play in a City lineup. And that's one thing I was going to actually ask is like one of the things that we probably took from week 1, especially in this game, in the match of the week, was the subs. We had talked in our preseason shows about how we thought the 5 subs would affect and would it help the bigger clubs and stuff. And I think we kind of like saw that where, like you're saying, Gally, City was able to bring a lot more talent on and kind of keep their style. Whereas, especially with some of the players that I knew were coming in West Ham, I think like they kind of like did not make the adjustment as much. Bickler, if you had to pick one thing you learned from this game, or maybe perhaps even week 1 in general, what would it be?
From this game in general, I would say that City's going to have a tactical change and they're going to figure it out because you can tell that they're not too far out. And I was hoping that wouldn't be the case, but they're going to be just fine and they're going to be a handful.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Gally?
I take 2 things out. I really thought that even though it was a short period of time, I thought Alvarez looked really good. I thought it would take him longer to get into the movement that City has. And I thought he had a nice little run out, which is scary when you sign a striker as good as Holland and you also sign a new backup for him in Alvarez. And he looks like he could hit the ground running as well. I also took out of it that there could be times this year that City does this thing where they use the midfielder or the 2 fullbacks dropping in like midfielders. and having one of the holding midfielders drop back. And I wouldn't be surprised in certain setups that he actually plays Phillips and Rodri together, so that out of possession or in possession, they're like playing a back three, and one of them is still holding as an anchor. And that's just allowing all these attack-minded players to bomb forward. Because I thought buying Phillips was a little bit of like overspending for a replacement. But I think there is a logic that Guardiola has that says I can play Phillips and Rodri together. And if they do that and figure it out, it could be real, real scary for the rest of the league, because that gives them a formidable defensive pairing and probably the most attack-minded offense with like 6 world-class players attacking at once, and that's pretty hard to defend.
And I think that's why, the question I asked you guys earlier, I think this is a team that you have to go at, because they will find a way to score on you. I think if you just think you're just going to be able to hang on, there's just way too much talent out there. But when you do go for it, kind of going back to what you were saying, Gally, you got to capitalize on the opportunities you create. You will create them against this defense and just their shape overall, because they are so attack-minded. But you got to capitalize. Otherwise, yes, you're going to get hurt back. I mean, I think aside from the sub thing, it was more of a confirmation than learning that Haaland is just going to be just fine. In the preseason, first it was Nunez that it was made too big of a deal with his misses. Then it was Haaland. These guys are both top quality, and they both showed it in week 1, and I think we're going to see more of it. And it should definitely be exciting to watch moving on. But this week's match of the week, City gets the 3 points away at West Ham. So next up, we leave week 1 behind, and we get to pick our stud of the week and dud of the week. For those new to the show, well, it is the first episode, first week, so I guess everybody is new to the show. Basically, we pick a player, a manager, or a team as our stud of the week or dud of the week. Bickler, we will start with you on this one with the stud of the week.
My stud of the week is Tottenham's Kulusevski. And if you would have told me that Tottenham was going to score 4 goals in between Harry Kane and Son, there would only be 1 goal involvement between the two of those, that would be shocking, right? But Kulusevski was at the heart of everything good. I thought he was dominant through that game. The fact that he gives what has usually been sort of a two-headed monster in Tottenham such an efficient and sort of consistent attacking outlet, they're going to be really, really scary. I mean, we haven't even gotten to see Richarlison in the system yet. So you pair that with Conte being having firmed that side up defensively, and they're going to be very, very scary. But I thought Kulusevski in general was just an absolute monster on the day.
Gally, who do you have for stud of the week?
So my stud of the week, I'm staying in North London too. My stud of the week is actually William Saliba, however the hell you pronounce it, the young French defender for Arsenal. Anyone who watched that match, they could talk about how good Zinchenko looked, Saka on the wing. Odegaard was boss all over the midfield. They literally played a wonderful football match, Arsenal did. But everything flowed through that center back. And, he spent 3 years on loan. It looked like his career might actually be teetering. He might even be up for sale because he really wanted to break into the France squad. And I think it just shows how amazingly talented and deep the French center backs are, because the kid looked like he had been in the Premier League forever. He was commanding the back line. He was the vocal leader, not Gabriel, and everything good went through him. And he covered the entire time for Ben White. And he really allowed Ben White to go forward and actually look like he was offering something in attack. And for a kid to make his first Premier League appearance for the club and be voted man of the match, I think is pretty impressive. And I thought he was absolutely the stud of the week. And I think Arsenal found themselves a gem.
My stud of the week, I'm going to go with a team. I'm going to go with Brighton. And I know United fans are not happy to hear this, but or maybe they should be happy to hear this. The fact that Brighton actually looked really good. It wasn't just a case of, I know United fans are going to be more critical on their teams, but I thought Brighton was really, really good on the ball. I mean, I was kind of had some concerns going into this season to see if they're going to build up on. I really enjoyed the brand of football they play, and they looked very impressive. And I mean, to be honest, the 2-0 that the lead they had could have been a lot more, and I think they're going to be quite impressive team. I think in the preseason previews we kind of rated them high, but I might even kind of go a bit more bullish on that. I thought they were extremely impressive, so I'm making them my stud of the week, getting 3 points away at Old Trafford. Let's go over to the dud of the week. We'll start in reverse order this time. Gally, let's start with you. Who is your dud?
So my dud of the week is Aston Villa. And before the Villa fans line up to throw hate, wait, you already have. Keep lining up. We had concerns in our preview, right? Were they going to be that much improved? They made some changes. Is it a tactical awareness? If you show up and play Bournemouth and make the Bournemouth back line look like Premier League defenders, you are doing some real hard work, because I would be shocked if anyone on here listening right now could actually name the entire back line. And I know Lloyd Kelly's kind of a household name for those in the transfer world, because every other club has always been talking about picking him up, but he was outstanding. They had 2 shots on target. It didn't look like any of the substitutions made any difference. So I'm not sure that Gerrard's original starting 11 got it right. And I'm not sure his moves had any impact on the match whatsoever. And, albeit for 3 Liverpool fans to say anything about Coutinho, except for I can't wait for him to come back. No, we really can. But outside of those first 2 matches he played at Villa that everyone got so excited about Phil Coutinho's back, he's gone 9 consecutive matches without a single goal involvement and hasn't even been creating opportunities. So I think the bloom is off the rose a little bit on, the Leon Bailey preseason and the Phil Coutinho renaissance. So for me, it's absolutely Aston Villa, the dud of the week.
Yes, we were already getting a lot of hate mail from the Villa fans after our preview show, but it shows that we were slightly right on that one. I'm sure we'll get more now. Who is your dud, Bickler?
Well, just to cut down on the hate mail, I'm going to go with Ten Hag at Manchester United. And it's not because of the performance of Manchester United. It is because when Ten Hag came up, we knew he had work to do, right? But he comes into this club and props himself up as a disciplinarian, a hard-nosed guy who's not going to take up with any BS, and he's really going to make examples out of players. And he starts this with Ronaldo on the bench, right? And a player that has made very clear he wants out, doesn't want to be there. He starts him on the bench, and then the moment they need something, he digs him off the bench and put him in the game, which to me completely undermines the move to start with him on the bench in the first place. And I think for me, it's just kind of like flies in the face of everything that he sort of propped himself up to be as a manager at that club. So dud of the week for me was Ten Hag.
I will go, and I hate myself for doing this. For the duds, I'm going to have to go with Salisu from Southampton. And not only because he had an own goal, I've had some many great own goals back in my day. Some of my own goals actually look better than my goals for. Scored some crazy headers into my own goal back in the day. I think not only that, before even he does that, he's the one messing up the line. In the other goal, I believe it was the first goal, he's in the wrong spot again. And throughout, I don't know if that own goal made it worse, but I felt like he was all over the place. So just not picking him for the own goal, but creating the situation that created the own goal by messing up the line by a lot too. It almost felt like he kind of froze and didn't know where he was prior to the goal. And like I say, afterwards, he was just all over the place. And I know Tottenham looked good and they're that attack looks really impressive overall, but I think the Southampton D had a lot to do with it. So he is my dud of the week. And I apologize on behalf of as a center back, but it is what it is. So let's take a look at the week in general. Obviously, we did the match of the week and addressed some of the people that impressed us and kind of maybe depressed us. So let's take a look at some of the overall scores. Gally, when you look at the score lines over the weekend, what was one result that kind of stood out to you and kind of shocked you in a way?
Well, I mean, I think the first result that shocked me was the first result on Saturday morning is Fulham drawing with Liverpool. I think that as Liverpool supporters, we had high expectations about how the team would set up and show up. And we covered it on our weekly podcast on Monday. But, they let me down with their attitude and their mentality. And honestly, you can't call yourselves mentality monsters and pat yourself on the back every time you have a great performance and then not question said mentality and blame it on a lunchtime kickoff when you don't play so well from the jump. So for me, conceding the way they did, the fact that they leveled, I thought when we got to 1-1, we'll go on and win this 3-1. And then when they gave up the penalty in another, shockingly mental mistake by one of the most class players on the planet, they did show some resolve to get the draw, score the second equalizer. And we can all talk about Hendo's bar clipping the top of the, Hendo's shot clipping the top of the bar. But to me, if that had gone in, it would have been criminal if we had left there with 3 points. Because on all accounts, Fulham deserved 3 points from that match. So the shocking results of the week for me is Fulham taking points off Liverpool in week 1.
I think so. I felt the same way. I mean, obviously, as Liverpool fans, we would have taken and run with those 3 points, but it would have been harsh on Fulham because I think they at least deserved a point from that. I mean, there were some silver linings as a Liverpool fan. You see Nunez and stuff, but I think Bickler, this is probably... I cannot remember a game where, every player is going to have poor performances, but it just felt like it was tricky to find decent performances. It just felt like everybody was having a bad day, and that has to be what goes back to, what Gally's talking about, more about a mentality thing than just happen to have a bad day kind of deal when it's the entire team.
Yeah, I mean, I think prior to the substitutions, Luis Diaz was the only one that was even close to average, right? I mean, everyone was so far off of it. And that's, we talked a little bit on the pod, but it is a problem when your catalyst for change is a 37-year-old James Milner coming off the bench. So, yeah, there are issues all over the place. I think that Liverpool struggles when Fabinho struggles, and he was about as off it as we've ever seen. And so that was very, very concerning across the board. Don't love the mentality going out. We hit that stat where, this is the 6th straight league game where we conceded first. That's a mad stat. That has got to change big time. So, yeah, there's a lot of issues. We're, severely concerned about mentality of the team in general. This year is supposed to be the revenge tour for Liverpool. And let's face it, man, they're not going to compete for a title versus a retooled Manchester City if this is an issue. So it's got to get sorted and got to get sorted quickly. But, yeah, it was a shocker for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely a good shot for a shocker of the week. I might have just tried to tune it off and zone it out, so did not pick that one. But Bickler, what was your shocking score for the week?
My shocker was the fact that the team that I picked to get relegated by a landslide came in and got a win over Villa, a team that everybody is very, very bullish on in general. We talked a little bit about it on our preview in the summer about how we were a little less bullish than them, had some question marks. I think it was absolutely insane to see how toothless they were, given the amount of firepower that's in that squad. It was just shocking all around in terms of seeing a team like Bournemouth where, we know Solanke's good, but we weren't sure where the goals were going to come more outside of him. He wasn't even involved in either goal. Scored twice and he wasn't even involved. So I just thought that was just a crazy result in general. Shocker all around.
I almost liken it to the Liverpool situation where it was a team playing home, their first game back in the Premier League. That's a lot of adrenaline and momentum to go into a game. So are we not giving enough credit to Bournemouth, you think, Gally, by really harping on Villa and what they couldn't do? Because I get the same thing. I mean, we kind of do the same thing with Liverpool too. Maybe it's a bit more natural as Liverpool fans instead of giving some credit to Fulham and how hard they played and how on it they were being, the home team in the first game back in the Premier League and stuff.
So I only saw the extended match highlights because, no one actually saw this match. Let's be honest. That match, it was brutal. It was, if you watch the highlights, it was brutal. And
you can't take Gally anywhere.
No, you can't. You can't. I mean, listen, I'm gonna get through this whole thing without saying anything negative about Scott Parker by not talking about Scott Parker. But yes. Bournemouth comes out and scores within 2 minutes of the match. And 2 minutes of opening, you're conceding a goal in the first 2 minutes of your Premier League season. That is either you are really on it or the other side isn't even out of first gear yet. And from what I saw in the highlights, it didn't look like Aston Villa ever got out of first gear in the entire match. So I want to give Bournemouth a lot of credit. I think they showed up, and their fans, we've all seen it. You know, they have like the three covered sides of the stadium. It's the smallest top flight grounds ever to house a Premier League match, and still is. We know who Bournemouth is. We saw it for 7 seasons up with Eddie Howe during that run. If they get it right, it works really well. But everything had to go right for them to be able to secure some points. But they picked up 3 huge points on the first match week of the year. And I think it's got to breathe some enormous amount of life into them. And isn't it shocking that they're being linked with like 3 or 4 different loans and buys now? And I honestly believe like their ownership and people saw it and we're like, hey, we got 3 more points than we thought we'd get like the first half of the year. We should like go buy a few Premier League players and see if we can be a Premier League team by January. And I still think they'll probably finish 20th. But hey, they should be really, really proud of the result they got. But I think this has more to do with Villa's ineptitude on Saturday than it was Bournemouth being great.
Oh, sounds like I'm going to have to put Gally a direct email in the notes for the Bournemouth fans, that the 10 of them that watched the preview show we did. But I think in some ways, you know, week 1 is always like a ridiculous overreaction, right? Like everybody looks at the week 1 scores and it's just like an overreaction. You can go back seasons and look at week 1 and see teams that suffered miserably afterwards, like doing well. I think, but having said that, a team like Bournemouth, kind of like getting those 3 points, this could be 3 points. They'll look in the end of the season and be like, hey, man, that's what's kind of like saved us back in the day. I still don't think so. I'm probably more with Gally on this one in terms of where they end up. But it's still a huge 3 points for them. My shocker of the week, and I think, you know, the United Brighton game, I just felt like United would start. You know, I talk about how Bournemouth and Fulham started, right? And, you know, like new Premier League, all that. You know, there's some adrenaline and momentum that should go with that. And it does. And obviously they showed it. And I felt maybe Ten Hag would be able to kind of like infuse that to United a little bit. And I was kind of shocked to see that it was pretty much the same old stuff that they had last year, which I know like any United fans listening, they think it's crap. And they're probably right, because it looked like the same exact problems, the way they conceded goals, the way some of their players performed. Having, you know, McFred in the middle again, who I know United fans hate. I felt like just the way the game went and how flat, I guess, United was. You know, we talk about Liverpool being flat earlier. I just felt like at home, they would have a lot of fire to them, Gally, and it was just like non-existent. It almost looked like it was another game at the end of last season, which is a season that any United fan wants to forget.
Yeah, I think they were no better at the back, right? They're trying to play out from the back. They were turning the ball over left and right. The young Ecuadorian Caicedo was just bossing the entire midfield. You're playing Eriksen as a false 9 with Rashford on the pitch and Bruno Fernandes playing behind him in the hole. Later on, you make the move, as Paul mentioned earlier, whether it was, you know, Ten Hag kind of holding his nose to bring Ronaldo in. But when he does that, he makes the move and he drops Eriksen back into like the deeper creative role. And Eriksen really was the best player, in my opinion, from top to bottom on the United pitch on Sunday. And it was just more of the same. Sancho looked completely disinterested and lost, like he could care less. And it's been that way since he got there. And I just don't see how things improve if you're just going to keep rolling out McFred in midfield. You know, Donny van de Beek's got to be sitting there going like, why did you tell me to stick around if I'm sitting behind Scott McTominay and, you know, Fred? I mean, Fred. Seriously. I don't even like making fun of the guy by now because I feel like he takes so much stick from United supporters. And at least he shows like he cares. It looks like he's trying, but he is just not that level. And it doesn't matter what you do. And it feels like Ten Hag is stuck with Luke Shaw He's stuck with Fred, and he's stuck with Rashford and Sancho, and I just don't know what he's going to be able to do to make it better.
I think with like Fred, I did not even understand why, they would kind of like, it's almost felt like it should be reversed, where it looked like Fred was a defensive midfielder, McTominay playing in front of him. And I feel like, okay, he has size, but he doesn't have pace or agility that Fred has and the creativity. So I just did not understand why they were playing like that, first of all. And more than that, obviously, you keep listening to the same players. And I know, like, in the great words of Maguire, every coach is picking me, so I must be doing something good. Is it just a matter of that? Or is it just like the clicks that's going on? Or is this just manager arrogance, Bickler, where Ten Hag said, oh, they couldn't make those guys play. Watch me do it.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is for Donny Van de Beek to be shut out of that lineup like that. I think there's a couple of issues here, and one of the issues is if you're a United supporter and you're looking at this window, what have they done? Like, I mean, I think we've gotten to the point now where they can no longer, as a club, overpay players to go there. And now that's a huge problem for them, because that's traditionally how they've skated by for the last 5 or 6 seasons, to inject people in by overpaying. They can't do that now. So what are they're stuck with bringing in Dutch league players, which, by the way, I got an unhealthy amount of enjoyment watching De Gea scream at Lisandro Martinez for not winning headers against Welbeck, because apparently somebody hasn't updated De Gea, the fact that they're now starting a center back that's 5'9", and he is not going to win headers against Welbeck. There's so many that there is a lot of issues to address. I think when that match started, it looked like there was a new system and sort of a new brand of football for about 10 minutes, but then that stuff kind of washed off. It's like they just haven't, it's like they are what they are, and they couldn't fake it longer than 10 minutes. Like, it was like just old habits dying hard, and they just kind of reverted to their default, which is apparently shite, because it was like it was bad.
And
but
that's
then also,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I've just spent a lot of time shitting on United, but I also, to your original point, I thought Brighton was very good.
Yeah, I think, part of it is Ten Hag maybe thinking these guys can't be that bad. I can make this work. And I know the players that he wanted, I mean, they've been working on this De Jong thing for like months now, and doesn't look like it's happening either still. And I mean, rumors were yesterday that they're going to go over, like, after like Arnautovic, who was, I don't know why they go after like these old guys that are like washed, that they did it with Igalo, like Cavani.
Yeah, he's going to really help your movement up top. Let's get him.
Yeah, I just don't understand. I mean, I don't think he was good enough like 3-4 seasons ago when he was in the Premier League for United.
Yeah, if you want a surly prick wearing number 7, just play the surly prick that wears number 7.
Yeah. And okay, let's start with that drama. And I think that's the thing. I mean, when you look at a team, I mean, when we look at good teams, it's like from the top, bottom, right? And that, that's the manager. And I thought, yes, it was a good move to not put Ronaldo in the starting lineup with all the drama happening. But of course, it doesn't look good when you're down 2-0 and you're like, hey, man, can you help us out there? Because, we got to come back. Because that almost, makes you look weak again. And you have a guy there who's supposed to be the face of the team, the leader of the team, the experienced guy in the locker room, the voice of success and stuff like that. And he just doesn't want to be there. And, it's just a miserable situation to keep having him in there. Because you knew the camera was going to be on him the entire game. And he still worked for those cameras.
Oh, listen, someday they will change like the definition of narcissist, and it will just be a picture of him looking at himself at a picture. Like, it'll be him looking at a picture of himself, because he loves himself some camera, right? And he makes sure he gets on the camera. I swear he knows where it is at all times. I disagreed a little bit from this standpoint. If you are benching him as a disciplinary action, then you send the son of a bitch up in the stands and he sits in a club box, and you tell him you're going to be there all match long and the camera's going to look at him and he's going to be pissed. as soon as you put him on the bench, I think you owe it to all the other players on the field to try to go win the match. And they needed somebody to come in and change things. And as much as I have to hold my nose to say this, they got better when they brought him on the pitch. They did. They started to create opportunities. They scored. They moved Eriksen back into the midfield. Now, I think Bruno Fernandes looks an absolute shell of himself. And I blamed it all last year on Ronaldo being there. And maybe that's not it. Maybe Bruno is kind of a front runner. And when things are going well for him and he's scoring lots of goals and it's all about him, it's great. But as soon as the times get tough, he doesn't want to work for it, because that's what it looks like at Portugal too. Anytime he gets replaced, he just pouts on the side of the pitch and he gets angry and irritated. So maybe it's more on Bruno. But, you know, as far as Ronaldo goes, I think once Ten Hag named him to the bench, he had a right to, he needed to play him, because he's got 5 substitutions and you're losing at Old Trafford and you have the all-time leading goal scorer in European football on your bench. You got to go put him in the match.
And that goes back to, you know, you guys know me, and if you're new to the pod, I love playing the devil's advocate. So, you know, if you're Ronaldo, Bickler, and first of all, I think he realizes probably now that he made a terribly wrong decision in coming back to United in the first place. Perhaps he kind of like overestimated the impact he would have. It goes back to, you know, what maybe Gally is talking about, like kind of overvaluing himself, even at this age, and thinking, I'll carry them across to where they need to. They just need me, kind of a deal. But you look at the team last year, and we're talking about it now. You just talked about it earlier in the offseason, not doing much and stuff. And as a guy like Ronaldo, you're seeing this. Your career is almost over. You got all these records, blah, blah, you can get. Isn't it natural for him to be like, man, I got to go?
Yeah.
And why would United force him to be like, no, you're going to be good? He's like, no, I really want to go, because I think I would want to go too. I mean, it's almost like you got 60 days to live. You want to go out and party, man. You just don't want to like sit home and watch Netflix.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe this is like unfair to Ronaldo, but like, I think my major problem was the fact that he came in and essentially took the ball off Bruno, which was the best they ever were, when they had an identity with the ball in Bruno's hands. And so, I mean, we talked about that. We were out in front of that, and we were like, you know, we felt that Ronaldo going to United would actually make them worse. And I think that they've just evolved to the point where now his quality on the pitch is the only thing that we see as a bright spot. But I don't think he necessarily makes them better, because I think the identity has to revolve around Ronaldo. And I don't think that's what's best for Manchester United. So I understand both sides. Maybe that's not necessarily Ronaldo's fault, because like the club didn't have a choice when he came. That's just how it rolls with Ronaldo. I just was very against that sort of identity change for United. I don't know why, because I love watching United just suffer. I love it. But like, there's a part of me that just doesn't get behind the circus of narcissism that is Cristiano Ronaldo in general. So, I mean, for me, if I'm Ten Hag and he's causing drama, and I don't like, for me, I find a way to get him out. And if I'm not, I don't have him a part of the bench. But like, that's the thing, like that, and that's my problem with it. Like, you're in the middle now, and that's a spot you can't be on that issue. You're either find him a new home, or he is the central point of your team and you figure out an identity around him. And they're in the middle, and I think that's where you circle the drain.
So I feel like Ten Hag himself is not in the middle. I think he wants Ronaldo to be that piece. One, I do not understand that personally, because you're building something new. Why would you make, like an old guy that's not going to be there in probably 2-3 years, when this project should really start coming together, as the focal point? Unless, Gally, you feel like he's your only hope to keep things afloat for now as you build the rest.
I think the truth is, and this is what is the $1 million, the elephant in the room, $1 million question. Nobody wants him. There is no home for him. Like, that's the key. PSG, no thanks. Chelsea, no thanks. Bayern, not interested. Juve, seen that, ran that race. Real Madrid, we had that rodeo. He's going to go to Atletico Madrid. Their supporters literally boycotted their own match over the chance of signing Ronaldo. There's nowhere for him to go. I mean, I feel like every club outside of Liverpool that qualified for Champions League said we're not interested in Ronaldo. And we just didn't have to because we knew they'd never send him to us. And we don't want him either. So
yeah, I think it went without saying.
But his demand is about Champions League football, right? And not a single club in the Champions League thought Ronaldo would make them better or give them a better chance to win it. Like, Juve stopped winning the Scudetto because they sold out and signed that SOB, and he ruined everything good that they had built in a decade in 2 seasons. Like, I used to listen to this great Italian journalist. He'd always say, even if Juve wins the Champions League, the Ronaldo era will never be a success because they broke everything that made them the top club in Italy. And now they're the 4th best club in Italy. And, United finished 2nd, signed Ronaldo, and finished outside of the Champions League. Like, there's real parallels to be drawn here about a player. And we talk about his narcissism. The only reason he wants out is he can't maintain his top goal scorer in the Champions League all time if he doesn't play any Champions League matches, and he knows Messi's going to play some matches with PSG. It's that much about him. It's not even about wanting to go to another club and help them win or win more trophies. It's about individual accomplishments, which, to Paul's point, I don't think Ten Hag wants him. I genuinely don't. But there's no one else out there. So what are you going to do? Tell Cristiano Ronaldo to go train with the under 23s while you trot out Anthony Martial or Alanga? I mean, you can't do that and charge people what they charge people to come to that toilet of a stadium in Manchester.
And that's how bad it's gotten. They can't get players in, and they can't get rid of the players that don't want to be there. Like, the fact that Anthony Martial is still even there is, like, unbelievable to me.
And I think you're not helping yourself when you hit the panic button and go sign a 33-year-old, a 35-year-old, and even still pay like 8-10 million and stuff, because you're not going to get that money back. You're not going to be able to move him afterwards. And they've done it over and over again. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see this Ronaldo saga, because we got 3 more weeks left in the transfer market over here. And you're right, Gallia. I don't know if there's a buyer for him in terms of situation, in terms of the fit he would like, and not to mention in terms of the money that he would want. So it'd definitely be interesting to see. So as we put week 1 behind and all the overreactions, week 2 coming up, Gally, give me one thing you're looking forward to see, or you're intrigued to see, I guess we should say.
So I'm intrigued to see Southampton versus Leeds. I think if I had been able to get a 1A for an impressive performance this week, I was impressed with Leeds going down as early as they did at home and not collapsing and coming back and winning the match with how tough they finished last year. And I think Southampton, as we all picked to be somewhere near the relegation zone, looked like a championship side on week 1. So I think that's a huge opportunity for Leeds to go to Southampton and pick up more points and really kick on their season.
How about you, Bickler? What are you looking for?
Ooh, there's a number of good ones, I think, that are going to be very interesting in shaping up both the bottom and the top of the table. I'm going to go with the softball, though. I'm looking at that 12:30 Eastern time match between United and Brentford, just because that could be a real flashpoint. Brentford is wildly inconsistent, but they can score, and United are in a tough spot. And if they drop the first 2 games of the season, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think the easy choice with the match of the week that we have picked for next week, Chelsea versus Tottenham. But I'm going with Villa versus Everton, the crack of dawn game for us on Saturday over here in the Central Time Zone. I think it's an interesting matchup to see. We talked about like overreactions and stuff, to see, is Villa as bad as they looked? Are they going to be able to bounce back from that? And Everton, with the injuries piling up now, they're trying to bring pieces in like Cody and stuff. Are they going to be able to rebound back? Because that fan base was hopeful starting the season, And, it was a tough game they lost to, but with all these injuries and stuff, if they continue to struggle 2-3 weeks into the season, I don't know how behind they will get for Lampard over there, and he might start getting in that hot water. So I'll be looking out for that game. Will I wake up for it? Is a different question, but definitely be looking forward to it. Well, that's all we have for this week. Next week's match of the week is going to be Chelsea taking on Tottenham, which should be a good one. Let us know who you thought were the studs of the week, duds of the week, who you thought had the shocking results this week in the comment section. As always, give us a like, a subscribe, and all that good stuff, and we'll see you guys next week.